At the annual Sociology Association conference being held at the University of Newcastle, Dr Gisela Kaplan said there is no evidence that racial hatred is being controlled in universities. With a growing number of overseas students accepting non-government funded places in Australian tertiary institutions, the resentment of other students has become a problem.
We do know most definitely that there are Asian students that are being bashed up on campuses.
Dr Kaplan says it's difficult to know precisely the level of racism in universities because victims are ashamed to report incidents. But the problem is thought to be serious, with Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students the biggest targets. According to Dr Kaplan, the distrust and resentment is created by fear of difference and a lack of understanding about other cultures. Marge Kibbe, who deals with complaints about racist behaviour at the University of Newcastle, says Australian students feel as though overseas scholars are being given special treatment.
A lot of these things, of course, aren't easily resolved, and I think we need to change the university culture, a way of thinking about it.
According to Dr Kaplan, rules and punishments for racist behaviour will not be effective to stop racism. She says the only answer is education and is encouraging universities to undertake awareness campaigns. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
It seems that anything less than some sort of a recycling service is unacceptable nowadays, and although there's no perfect solution to the problem of waste disposal, there are improvements being made. At Lake Macquarie's Awabba Tip, a new recycling centre separates household solid waste for collection and resale, and has also managed to collect 100,000 litres of waste sump oil for reuse.
It's just not only the usual ones. We've had the glass and the PET bottles and papers, but we've now gone to the sump oil, which is proving to be very successful, actually.
It's surprising to find the sort of things that are being saved from the tip, as local government recycling incentives aim towards a 60% reduction in landfill.
Picked up the stuff from the landfill site, but it's sort of one man's trash is another man's treasure, and I get a lot of people coming in here and looking around and pick up a bargain.
Meanwhile, plans are progressing for a waste transfer depot at Redhead for Eastern Lake Macquarie residents.
The current commitment is by August 1996, and we're probably cutting it a bit fine in February, but hopefully we'll still be right for August 1996.
The West Indies arrived in Newcastle late this afternoon after their opening match was washed out in Canberra yesterday. On the eve of their four-day encounter, the Brian Lara saga continues to plague the tourists, with Viv Richards now offering to mediate between West Indian officials and the 26-year-old. Does it need someone like Viv to come in and sort of try and sort things out, do you think?
Well, whoever it takes, really. I mean, you're always going to have little bits and bit of problems now and again, but I think whatever your problem is, it'd be nice if you can really sort it out as quickly as possible.
Despite Lara's absence, the West Indies will field a formidable lineup tomorrow. Richardson is hopeful of returning from injury, while the three quicks are likely to be included in the 11.
Yeah, we're going to play a very strong team. Any team that we play is a strong team, but it's quite likely that you might see Bishop, Walsh, Ambrose all together.
New South Wales has an enviable record in Newcastle, but face a Caribbean team determined to make up for their home loss to Australia without its Test representatives.
They've had some problems after their England tour and some internal strife. I just got the feeling they'll be coming out with all guns blazing, so it's a big challenge for us.
Leading that challenge will be Greg Matthews, who at 36 will break Jeff Lawson's record of 115 appearances for New South Wales in his former hometown. The off-spinning all-rounder will be well suited to the Newcastle track and has not given up hope on representing Australia at the World Cup.
No, and nor a test spot this season, and nor the next one-day team that's picked.
Play gets underway tomorrow morning at 11 o'clock. In the Australian Schools Championship last week, competition was held up by the flat conditions, but today heats were delayed for the opposite reason. The under-18s and under-16 boys went ahead, with most struggling in the powerful surf. Avoca's Jeremy Cohen moved through to the qualifying round, taking out Heat 8 this morning, ahead of New South Wales under-18 title holder Trent Munro from Scott's Head. Others to advance include schoolboys champ Taj Burrows from Western Australia, Avoca's Troy Gould and Bonnie Hill's Darren O'Rafferty. Competition resumes tomorrow morning. Resuming at 5 for 266, Scott Thompson struck consecutive boundaries off Walsh, the West Indies skipper gaining revenge next ball. He was then forced off the field with an ankle injury before Ambrose trapped Lee in front and Matthews was removed by Harper. Maxwell then held out in the deep, while Emery was run out. The Blues dismissed for 308. The tourists lost both openers before erasing the deficit. Campbell mistiming Maxwell's gift, while a Matthews arm ball fooled Williams and Emery, who broke the stumps at the second attempt. The keeper was also involved in Hooper's demise, engineered by the Blues' first innings hero. Matthews picked up Chanderpaul right on tee, the West Indies struggling at 4 for 101. Jimmy Adams lost his fourth partner when Roland Holder tickled a Maxwell delivery through to Emery, the left-hander's frustration surfacing next over. The sorry tale for the West Indies continued, with veteran Roger Harper becoming the seventh victim before wicketkeeper Corey Brown was caught off the bowling of Greg Matthews just before stumps.
in the air, wide of the fine leg fieldsman. That'll be 4.
You've done a lot of things in cricket. You've never been a first-class umpire, though.
That they should be out there at the moment is ridiculous. Equally, the West Indies think that New South Wales should have gone more hard at getting the target within the 20-21 overs.
Yes, Wes Hall has said, look, you had 20 overs to get those runs. You only needed 90 of them. You had all 10 wickets in hand. Wes Hall told me the New South Wales side should have been looking at varying their batting order.
A proposal to play a test in Newcastle in 1997 is now before the Australian Cricket Board. The State Association was delighted with the response over the last 4 days, and while there are some reservations, most are optimistic.
The trouble is with the one-dayers and the international matches, you know, you're looking at $30 a head and all that sort of thing. But, you know, there's no doubt about it that every match we've played here, we've made a profit.
Davidson's old foe, Wes Hall, who first played in Newcastle during the West Indies' famous 1960-61 tour, also believes the city has the facilities to warrant a one-dayer.
And I would love to see you get a one-day international. There'll be certain things you would have to do, and I think you're doing it. You're improving the facilities for the players, and that's important. And then, you know, you for one-day wicket, you want a wicket that comes through, you know, and is not too slow.
And the wicket was the New South Welshman's only concern, most believing Newcastle would be most likely to get a limited overs fixture.
You know, it's a good venue. The outfield and the rest of the facilities are pretty good. I think it's a fair chance of that sort of thing happening. I think the wicket just has to be perhaps a bit more bounce in it or something like that.
Super League is also looking at using number 1 as a possible venue, and any upgrading for rugby league may also be of assistance. The ACB won't announce its venues for next season until halfway through next year.
The state of the boardwalk at South Newcastle Beach this morning shocked beachgoers and council workers. In the attack, vandals smashed a sink in the beachside toilet block, lit fires and set ablaze a wheelie bin full of spray cans.
I'm an Novocastrian to my back teeth. I'm really sad about the current attitude.
John Wotherspoon and Jeff Dawson, who have been coming to Newcastle Beach all their lives, say they've never seen such reckless disregard for public property. They blame the vandalism and rampant graffiti on skateboarders and rollerbladers who use the adjacent ramps built by council last year. They say graffitiists have been encouraged by council, which gave over a wall behind the area to graffiti artists.
I think it's encouraged people from, to come here that are probably not locals.
Some of the skate park users deny skaters have made the mess, saying street people are responsible. But others say skaters have done the illegal graffiti. Matthew, do you think that some of the skaters would have done this graffiti?
Yeah, most probably.
What makes you think that?
Just because they feel this is their place to skate and they just want to just put their names around the place.
I think it's probably all the homies and the bombers come down at night and do it.
You don't reckon it's the skateboarders?
No, skaters don't do that. We just like to skate down here.
Newcastle Surf Club has called for a greater police presence in the area at night time and for council to take action. It says if something isn't done, the beach will be taken over entirely by an undesirable element. Laura Saperstein, NBN News. The phones have been running hot at the CES today with more than 250 calls in the first few hours.
A lot of people will probably are still only just sort of becoming aware of the fact that it's happening. If you just excuse me, I'll just have to grab this. Good morning, CES Franklin's hotline.
The CES was called in by Franklin's supermarkets to deal with the huge demand for the 500 jobs on offer. 100 people will be recruited at the company's upgraded Charlestown store, while another 350 job seekers will have their Christmas wishes answered at a new Glendale supermarket. With the unemployment rate in Newcastle still more than 4% above the state average, the CES says the prospect of work for so many created a flurry of activity in its Charlestown branch.
Well, certainly it has created excitement amongst our staff, but it's also created a lot of excitement with our job seekers. People are very keen to see these opportunities occur.
Franklin's plans to interview about 2,000 hopefuls.
We'll lose things that our blokes have fought for years, and we'll lose it from a government who we helped put there. That we will up the ante in this particular dispute. New South Wales proud by standing up for specific issues. But I want to congratulate answers which may very well lead us to the same situation. However, we're here today to demonstrate quite clearly that unionists
The authorities are now pulling out the big guns to put a stop to rave parties suspected of being drug infested. State Command has directed that extra police be rostered on this weekend when a 3-day dance party takes place at Mangrove Mountain near Gosford.
The venue lends itself to have individuals who are involved in the pushing of drugs to come along.
Gosford City Council has also taken a hard line, asking the Land and Environment Court for an injunction to stop the party going ahead. Council voted unanimously last night to take the legal action after the party organisers failed to lodge a development application.
They're trying to avoid accountability by the local authorities. You know, they're not doing this for the good of the community or the good of the young people. They're up there to make money.
Gosford Police have also confirmed that there will be a strong police presence in the area over the weekend if the party goes ahead, but Council hopes it won't get to that if an injunction is granted. It is not yet known when a judge will decide the matter, but Council hopes it will be as soon as tomorrow. Laura Saperstein, NBN News.
It's a contentious issue what to do with our forests. Green groups calling for more national parks. Logging workers demanding a sustainable industry. At Toronto today, State Forests held a public display advising on the latest information from an environmental impact statement looking to the next 10 years for the Wattigan Forest.
Over 33% of the area will not be logged when you take out the conservation reserves, the streamside protection, steep and inaccessible areas, areas of other particular value.
But logging levels could be reassessed.
As part of the EIS, we are going to look at our sustainable levels, this is part of the proposal, reassess those, and if there is a need for those levels to change, that will happen over the next few years.
About 80 people took part in the EIS, including timber groups, farmers and conservationists. No one from the Green Movement was available to comment on the 10-year plan. The EIS will go to the Planning Minister for approval early next year.
Take it easy, mate. Take it easy.
It's been a remarkable year for the younger of the Johns brothers, selected for country against City, then debuting for his state, and playing hooker for the victorious Australian World Cup side. But there'll be plenty of competition from the 11 other finalists from throughout northern New South Wales. Swimmer Chris Fidler leads the North Coast contingent. The North West is represented by Australian hockey player Matthew Smith, with Newcastle, Lake Macquarie and Hunter athletes filling the other positions. Lake Macquarie's Warren Tressiter is through after winning the Carter title at the World Karate Championships with a broken jaw. Newcastle's Lisa Ryan is also considered a good chance after winning back-to-back World Wave Ski titles. The winner will be announced live on NBN on February 3. Richard O'Leary, NBN News.
Lake Macquarie's Henderson was part of a strong field in the open 100 metres and had a blistering start, only to be run down in the last 40 metres. Jackson clocking 10.53 seconds, while Henderson was second in 10.66. Terrigal's national beach sprint champion Veronica Lee, who will compete in the Surf League at Newcastle tomorrow, also got off the blocks well but had Kathy Freeman to contend with. 11.94 for Freeman, with Lee third in 12.18 seconds. In baseball, the Hunter Eagles welcome back their first recruit to score a home run this weekend. Sam Grant, who is now playing for a US college, will be available for the next 5 weeks. Ironically, he posted the club's first home run against tomorrow's opponent, Sydney, in the Eagles' first game in the ABL last year. In racing, the Newcastle trained pair of Salivate and Rockahula will be two of the favoured runners at tomorrow's Christmas Stakes at Rose Hill. Wyong's Neville McBurney will also saddle up 2 starters in the $40,000 Christmas Cup in Spiritual Star, which has been set for the Wellington Cup, and Praise Indeed. And Triple US National Champion Tony Stewart will be back in action at the Newcastle Motordrome tomorrow night, this time in the International Speed Car Challenge.
These volunteers from Charlestown Lions Club are used to handing out cups of coffee, but today the group was toasting its own achievements. 10 years ago, the club started the Driver Reviver scheme, which now operates at more than 200 spots around the country. Next week, when motorists begin heading off on holidays, they will again be able to stop and revive on the Pacific Highway at Charlestown. At the same time, New South Wales Police will be patrolling the highway from Wahroonga and Sydney's north to the Queensland border. Again, they'll be targeting drink driving, speeding and driver fatigue. And a warning today for parents to make sure child restraints are fitted correctly.
And adjust them occasionally so that when they put their child in, that they know the adjustments are correct, that the seat is securely held in and that the belt is comfortable but fitting the child well.
Leonie Forsyth of KidSafe says although many parents are restraining their children properly, there are others who continue to ignore the warnings.
And some people too are putting children younger than 9 in the front seat of a motor vehicle, and that is the most unsafe seat to put them. It's not advisable. Even if they perform, they really should be sitting in the back seat.
Jodie McKay, NBN News.
Resuming at 1 for 26, Illawarra put on 22 this morning before speedster Jamie Heath made the breakthrough, removing Matthew Fisher for 12. Heath gave Phil Jakes the perfect greeting, while his new ball partner Holloway should have had John Chapman caught behind next over. Chapman's reprieve was short-lived, Holloway trapping him in front in his next over. The lively Kieran O'Toole continued Illawarra's demise, picking up 2 further LBWs in the 1 over. The short ball then produced another wicket, Illawarra stumbling to be 6 for 100 at lunch and out of the match. Meantime, Country take on the State second 11 at Penrith tomorrow. 8 players from northern New South Wales will take part in the 3-day game. Around 14 yachts from the Lake Macquarie Club took part in the Sydney to Hobart and Pittwater to Coffs Harbour races last year. 12 months later, that number is down to just 6. The club claims boats are unable to get out of the lake because Swansea Channel is too shallow, despite recent work to rectify the problem.
It's a maintenance type dredging that is really too little. Not enough is being done to address this problem on a long-term basis.
At times, 2 motorboats are needed to lean a yacht in order to raise its keel before it can be dragged across the channel, an option many have chosen not to take.
It's a tough trip to Hobart, but it sounds like the hardest part is getting to the starting line.
From Lake Macquarie, if you can get to the starting line for the Hobart race, the rest of it's a piece of cake.
Peter Bromelo's Inner Circle and Bruce Mead's Dictator, which is already in Sydney, will make the trip south, while Colex Onyx will head the charge in the Pittwater to Coffs. Both Hobart contestants are expected to do well on handicap, particularly Inner Circle, with debutante crew member Marie Lamb.
They'll make a very good account for themselves. They're a very experienced crew, and they could be one of the dark horses in the race, certainly.
Beyond Silence is a report initiated by a group of general practitioners after it became obvious that homeless people aged 12 to 25 were dangerously disadvantaged and needed better access to healthcare services.
Well, I've got to say, really, mental health, and then all the other things that any average kid has, asthma, dermatitis, coughs, colds, etc.
10 Newcastle GPs will take their medical skills to the streets.
The average kid has a mum or a dad who drags them into the GP surgery. These kids don't have mums or dads and certainly rely on either youth workers or just themselves to get in there, and that creates problems for them.
While it's impossible to get an accurate number, there could be between 25,000 and 50,000 homeless youth across Australia, with many of them having no idea of what medical services are available to them.
19-year-old Shona Minns has been without a home for 3 years. She says while malnutrition and extreme weather conditions are a problem, the mental health system is constantly letting young people down. A 17-year-old friend of Shona's was treated in a Newcastle mental hospital earlier this year. A week after being released, the girl committed suicide. But she says this initiative offers new hope and a healthier lifestyle for homeless youth. Amanda Bolger, NBN News.